podcast time, baby. Featuring the Frustrated Recruiter, Part 1. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Mike Tech Studios podcast. This is Michael Midnight, and today our topic is actually going to be candidates in staffing. We want to get into company culture and really just fundamentals of what's important for recruiting. With us today actually is going to be our first guest on the podcast, Tejal Wagadia, a recruiter with quite a few years of experience under her belt. You can find her website and interesting blog posts at TheFrustratedRecruiter.com. Tejal, how you doing?
I am doing good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm glad you made it with us. I know that you were feeling a little under the weather earlier when we were talking. Glad you were able to brave the elements and join us today. So tell us, what is it about recruiting really that made you want to get in the field in the first place?
So it was about helping people, not only just helping people, but I'm also a big fan of being able to eat. I'm kidding. A lot of other jobs that, social worker or non-for-profit, you're kind of stuck in salary that you get. And recruiting helped me see that I could pay off my student debt. I could have a decent living. While my primary goal has always been to help people find the jobs that they're looking for, I love matchmaking. The secondary goal is always to make enough money so I can feed myself.
Absolutely. Now, for social work and volunteer work, that just never interested you at all for those types of professions? I know that, they can be really intense, like recruiting as well. And it is matchmaking in a sense, but there's really nothing about those fields that interest you at all?
So I do volunteer. A few weeks ago in January, my company took us to Mexico to build houses for people who didn't have houses. So I do like volunteering and I do like giving back to the community. I never wanted to do that as a career. Social workers and people who work in not-for-profit have a lot more patience than I do. I really admire what they do and I could never do what they are doing.
Well, I think the biggest difference with that is with recruiting, even though you can ignore your phone calls and emails, social work, you kind of take that baggage with you. So I've had a couple of friends who actually did do that type of work and work for the city when I was in New York City at the time. And it's very wearing. You hear these child abuse cases or these welfare cases, and they stay with you. If you have a candidate that kind of creeps you out or really impressed you, it's like, hey, that's cool. Okay, I'll see you later. And you check out. You really can't check out when you have a kid that's starving. It's just, it doesn't work the same way. So I can definitely understand that. With recruiting as a whole, what really do you find like the biggest challenges that the companies that either come to you or that you work with, that they ask of you as a recruiter when you are seeking out the talent for their needs?
So I think recruiting has evolved in the last few years where managers, at least most of the managers I work with now, understand that we're not going to, when they ask for a senior level .NET developer, we're not going to give them 5 qualified that they're going to fall in love with in 24 hours. We are in technology and people who are good already have a job or they don't want to hear about it, or people that they want already have a job. So they understand the fact that there is a reason why they're paying us the fee that they're paying us, whatever percentage that fee is, because we are needed for our services. We go out and find those people, but it's a process. So it's challenging trying to find the right candidate for the right client. At the end of the day, even though I do think of myself as the person who's helping the guy or the gal find the right job, I get paid by the employer, right? So my job is to find the right match for them. And then if the candidate that I have is not the exact match, I'm not going to say, hey, bye, have a good life, work with somebody else. I'm going to still talk to them and see if I can help them further.
You really do sound like a professional matchmaker there. It's like, no, don't worry, this one didn't work out for you. I'll keep you in mind in case a pretty girl or guy comes your way. And professionally, it would be, the girl or guy would be like the next, different job, administrative or IT or something like that.
Yeah. And, it is truly matchmaking because we have to find out what makes a client tick and then we have to find out what makes a candidate tick. And there's a saying, at least in our office, there's a pot for every lid.
Agreed.
You just have to find the right pot for the lid.
Agreed 100%. Well, you know what? It's also communication. Any good relationship, personal, professional, spiritual, going to the store and talking to the cashier, it all involves around real solid communication. Nothing is really more paramount than when we're talking about money, work, love. It's all going to be about communication. So that's definitely critical.
Yeah. I mean, without communication, you might as well be a robot, right? So,
well, if you've seen a lot of these emails that do come out from recruiters, I wouldn't put it past them at this point. I mean, the AI is getting really, really good. So,
yeah, there's people always like, oh, the AI, the robots are going to take your job. I'm like, yeah, no, part of it, not all of it. Recruiting is still a human business, right? So you still need the human element, because in AI, while they can figure out what makes you tick, it's the personality that matters. It's what makes you, not only what makes you tick, but how you talk to people that also matters. So many things that can go wrong up until you get the day you start as an employee. With one of my clients, that kind of risk mitigators try to lower the risk as much as possible for both sides of parties.
Sure, absolutely. No, and that makes sense. And you make a good point about the personal aspect of recruiting. And I really do feel that, I don't want to say exploited, but it's not really explored as best as it could be with a variety of recruiters. What's really your best medium? Like when you want to get to know potential candidates, or you really want them to, what you're reaching out for them for is authentic or genuine, what's the best method that you employ? What's your favorite medium?
So I, depending on the position, if it's a contracting role, I'll go for Dice or one of the job boards, people who have actually posted out their resumes. And even for contracting roles, I'll go on LinkedIn. One of the biggest things that I do is about the salary. This is the range that they're offering depending on your skill set. Because when you give somebody a range, and this is my personal experience, when I give someone a range, they automatically only hear the high number. They don't hear the low number. It's a little bit funny. I'm like, this is what they're looking to pay. Now, what are you looking to make? I'll be honest. I'm like, dude, this is not the right position for you. Continue talking. I want to get to know more about you. So when the right position does come about, I can give you a call and say, hey, here's the position you were looking for. I've got this, and this from that. Let's talk.
That I think is really key. So just clarity of those types of details and communication. With clarity and especially with salary, I cannot tell you how many times I've talked to a recruiter and they've really held that point at gunpoint to you. They immediately jump to you. How much are you looking to make? Or what's your present salary, so that you have that dance of, what's the position? What's the contract offering? Well, what are you looking for? Well, what is it offering? Well, what are you looking for? And it just avoids that standoff where if you can just say, hey, listen, company A, this is what they're looking for. This is the salary range. Talk to me. What do you think?
It's all about being honest and upfront with the people that you're working with, because if you're not going to tell them what's going on, why should they tell you anything about themselves?
Right. What's the point?
Yeah, it's a two-way street, and most recruiters forget that it's a two-way street. They think that they hold all the power and the candidates don't hold any of the power. Truthfully, have I asked somebody their salary? Yeah, I have. But I've also been able to tell them and coach them as far as, hey, you're not making enough. Here's what you should be making. And a lot of times people will, even when I ask them what kind of salary you're looking for, they'll be like, this is what I'm currently at, and this is what I don't know what the market is. And I'll guide them, because not only is my job to find the right candidate for the right client, if I don't have that candidate for the client, I'm not making any money. Right? So my job is to not only be the finder or the sorcerer, as I like to call myself, my job is also to coach the candidate on what's right and what's wrong. Sometimes I see wanting $75K and I'm like, yeah, no, you're going to make that in about 2 years. You're not going to make that right now.
Yeah.
Unless you're in Seattle or something. So.
Well, even then, I think, realistic goals and expectations, it's one thing to have in your mind what it is, where you see yourself, and also where, with a recruiting or agency's help, where you can end up. And I think that misinterpretation or even miscommunication of expectations, it can cause a little flack. What's the biggest misinterpretation of what people think being a recruiter is about, or recruiting in general, to your understanding?
most people don't understand the amount of work that it goes into helping somebody find the right job or helping somebody find the right candidate. Everyone thinks that we just send out mass emails and we're just resume pushers, because I'll get messages and say, oh, go ahead. I'll send a LinkedIn message and they'll be like, yeah, go ahead and send my resume over. Here's my resume. I'm like, no. I'm not just going to send your resume over. This is my butt on the line. Let's talk. Let me make sure you're actually the right fit for the client, because you might have the skill set, but you might not have the personality.
Tune in next week to finish up our part 2 conversation with Tejal about staffing headaches, humor, and horror stories as the Frustrated Recruiter gives us a look into the day-to-day life. You can also find our full conversation unedited on YouTube at youtube.com/MikeTech Studios. That's MIKTEK Studios. This podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, or your podcast app of choice. Thanks for checking out this episode. This is Michael Midnight signing off. And until next week, don't get fired now.